This screencast is going to show you how to add and subtract fractions. So the steps are listed on the screen, so make sure that you get those written down somewhere so that you can remember those later on. So we're going to go ahead and get started and look at the first example. So our first example is 1/4 plus 2/3. So our first step in adding or subtracting fractions, our algorithm, is to find a common denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and look at my denominators. Those are my bottom numbers. I have the numbers 4 and 3. And there are two ways you can do this. You could either multiply them together and get 12, or you can go ahead and list out the multiples of each number. Once again, I see that the least common multiple is 12, so that's what I'm going to use as my new common denominator. So when I go ahead and use that as my new common denominator, I'm going to change my fractions so that they are both out of 12, and I have to go through my steps, multiply by 3, multiply by 3, so I have 3/12, and then I multiply by 4, and I have 8/12, and then all I do to finish out this problem is just add the top numbers together, so 8 plus 3 is 11, and my denominator stays the same. And this final answer is in simplest form, so I don't need to worry about reducing my fraction any further. So 11/12 would be my final answer. The next question we're going to look at, or the next example we're going to look at, is a subtraction problem. So you have 7/8 minus 1/6. Once again, I'm going to look at my 8 and my 6 and come up with a common denominator between 8 and 6. I can come up with 48, but I do know that there's a smaller common denominator of 24. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my fractions, or find a new equivalent fraction using our common denominator. So I have 8 times 3, 7 times 3 gets me 21, 6 times 4, 1 times 4 gets me 4. I go ahead and subtract. 21 minus 4 gets me to 17, and my denominator stays the same. So once again, my final answer will be 17/24 because that is in simplest form. Another example for addition or adding two fractions together. Once again, find my common denominator. In this case, it's going to be 18. I'm going to go ahead and find each new equivalent fraction using my new common denominator. So times 2 times 2, I get 4, times 9 times 9, and I get 9. So I'm going to go ahead and add, just fix that 4 plus 9, and I would get 13 over 18. Once again, that answer is in simplest form, so I don't need to reduce the fraction. One final example using subtraction. Once again, looking at my common denominator. Common denominators between 4 and 5 would be 20. I'm going to find each new equivalent fraction using my common denominator. So multiply times 5 on the top and the bottom. 3 times 5 is 15. Second fraction of 1/5, I'm going to multiply by 4 on the top and the bottom, numerator and denominator, and I get a 4. I can then see that 15 minus 4 is 11/20. Once again, my answer is in simplest form, so I do not need to reduce. So once again, here are the steps for adding and subtracting fractions. You find a common denominator, find each new equivalent fraction using your common denominator, add the numerators, keep the denominators the same, and then make sure you're writing the final answer in simplest form.